Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here on time. I can see we've got a lot of people in the room already. I'm super excited to have you for today's session. As you can see, it's called Stop Counting Calls, Start Measuring Connection. And we'll see really what that word connection can actually mean. But really, today it's an attempt to move beyond the vanity metrics, the activity scores, the share of voice that we've been really grown up on as an industry, move beyond that vanity and see if it's possible through technology to do much more, to be able to actually measure and understand what really matters, the actual connection, the relationship, the influence, and the impact. I think that is a long overdue issue in our industry. I should imagine you agree with me. And that's why you're here. We've got several hundred people signed up. And I want to start with a number, and that number is 28%. Now, those of you who are parents in the room, if your child came home and told you that they'd got a score of 28% in the latest examination, something tells me you wouldn't be pinning that exam paper to the fridge and singing the praises, telling all your friends, and reminding your child of what a wonderfully capable individual they are. You'd probably be shoving it to the side and feeling a little embarrassed. Well, feel embarrassed because that is our score. That is our score in pharma. Only 28% of HCPs are saying that the interactions with industry are of value and are meeting their needs. That means the rest of them, 72%, are basically tuning out wherever they can. So can we move? It's a pretty low bar, admittedly, but can we move? Can we switch that around? Maybe 72% could be actually of value. Maybe that sounds almost lofty in ambition, but I think it's something worth aiming for. And today's session is really going to be considering how that connection, once considered a complete intangibility, could now be quantified, modeled, and of course improved. How leading organizations are indeed doing that. We'll see from a couple of people that are taking their steps forward in this space, and that's going to be really, really exciting. And how, of course, we can ensure that this human industry remains human. With all this talk of great science, great technology, sometimes it's easy to forget that we are in a human-to-human industry, and indeed that behavioral science is just as important as clinical science, not something that we necessarily appreciate as much as we should in our industry, but I think it is indeed something we need to do. So, speaking of humans, you are a human, last time I checked, and that means that I need you to open the chat window right now and say hello. Be human. Say where you're dialing in from, say why you're here, say what it is that you'd like to hear about, and that will start the conversation. I can see a few people have indeed started already. Okay, so that's me, in case you didn't know that already. And more importantly, here are our panelists. We've got several good panelists today, I'm sure you'll agree. We have Audrey. Now, Audrey's been suffering a couple of connection issues, so hopefully she will join us in a moment. But she is very much trying. She is the Global Director of Rare Disease Orchestrated Customer Engagement. Obviously, we all know Novo Nordisk has gone through a lot of change in the last 24 hours, let alone in the last 24 days or weeks. But Audrey has remained consistent. She was in the rare disease area, but now is focusing across the GLP-1s. She's a marketer, storyteller, strategist, customer experience enthusiast, and actually one of my favorite people in our industry. You will see why. Hopefully she'll be able to join us in a moment. She's fantastic. Chris has kind of been on one webinar a year with me of recent times, and I am immensely grateful that he has been doing that and is joining us today. Another of my favorites, I have to say. He has spent 24 years in pharma and is hell-bent on driving us from sick care to healthcare, which I believe is, of course, a worthy endeavor. He is responsible at J&J for global commercials and is known for inspiring teams in accelerating brand growth and consistently exceeding targets. You'll also see that he is a lovely gentleman gentleman indeed, and I am super happy that you're here, Chris. Thank you so much. Claire, someone who I've got to know only recently. She's a franchise head for UK and Ireland at Sanofi. Great UKIE team at Sanofi. Enjoy several of the good people working there. She's a driven and energetic communicator with a knack for bringing people together and delivering results. That's exactly what we need, building motivated teams and engaging stakeholders at every level. Claire, I have no doubt you're going to bring a lot of good insights with us today, so super excited. Dave, again, someone who I've only got to know recently, and I joked with him when he joined the prep call for today's session that anyone with the word AI in their job title must be inundated these days with approaches. Yet somehow he's still alive and he's still willing to talk to us today. So thank you, Dave. You bring, of course, the technology angle to this conversation, but you're more than just a technologist. You are an innovator, and I believe that you've been transforming field experiences and delivering impact for quite some time now. Super happy to see that you are here, and really looking forward to hearing more about your good work at GSK. Sabine, welcome, Sabine. She is general manager at Benelux for Gilead, a company that, of course, is driving a very exciting portfolio. She drives change with ethics, with vision, with a focus on patient impact, as well as, of course, all of the commercials. And she's a member of the leadership team and a European HIV group, of course, as well, championing the individualized therapies and working towards a cure for HIV. Very genuine work there. Last but not least is David. David is from Kai, someone who I've got to know very well over the last couple of years. And the reason for that is because his company is a genuine pioneer in this space, doing some super exciting work. David describes himself as a customer guy. He's got experience across multiple industries, not just pharma, and he's in creating a lot of value through smart engagement and AI-driven insights and technology for quite a few years now. I'm super excited about what David is bringing to our industry, not just now, but in the near future too. So I can see a lot of you have introduced yourselves. Keep those intros going in the chat. Let's make sure that today is not just a one-way discussion, but a multi-way debate even. So I want to hear really from all of you. Today's session is being recorded. You don't need to ask me for it. And of course, all of our panelists are speaking from a personal point of view, not necessarily their companies. So bear that in mind. Right. Going to do a couple of things around questions at this point. You remember asking yourself, being asked, can't even speak, a question when you signed up for today's session. And this was it. What would you say is the most useful measurement method used to evaluate the quality of HCP interactions in your organization? Well, you can see there was a clear winner with nearly 2/5 of the vote. What was it? Let's see. Not sure. I love that. I actually nearly asked my colleague to remove that one from the pie chart, but I actually think it's telling. That we are 2/5 of us would say not sure what the most useful measurement method is to evaluate HCP interactions. Amusing if it wasn't so tragic. Nearly 20% of people saying primarily through traditional activity metrics, all of that vanity stuff and activity fuss that I spoke about at the beginning. No surprise, but I think we need to move on. Experimenting with qualitative or behavioral indicators, that's 10%. 9% saying we don't have a consistent approach to measuring engagement. It varies across the portfolio. And then everyone else, a range of different things, including 7% saying we're not evaluating in a structured way at all. That was the first question. The second one is this one. If you wanted to move to metrics, which evaluated the connection quality rather than activity, what would be the greatest barriers? Well, again, you can see a winner, but a bit more even spread this time. Let's have a look at what the answers were. 27% legacy KPI and reporting structures. Okay, so again, it's the old-fashioned stuff. 20% limited tools or technology. Well, you're in the right place because you'll find out a bit more about that today. 17% cultural or leadership resistance or budget. Unsure where to start, 16, and 15% were not there, but I don't see significant barriers. Only, that's the most positive answer, by the way, only 15% of people saying that. Finally, of course, 345. Oh, that's even more positive. We're already doing it. Okay, so you've seen the question that you've done there. I'm also going to do a live poll question with you right now. So on your screen in a second, you'll see a brand new question appear. This one's called Beliefs. I want you to tell us what out of the options when they arrive you believe in most. So the first one, what best reflects how your organization defines a successful HCP interaction? And the second one, regardless of the perceived quality of a medicine, what, in your opinion, most influences whether an HCP is willing to act on a field conversation? That's either MSL or sales rep. So I'll hold that open for probably 3 or 4 minutes to give you time to go through that. And what I will now do is ask our panelists to please turn on their cameras, and let's make sure today that we get a good conversation going. We have Audrey. I'm super excited about that. Oh, we had Audrey's. Oh, yes, we do have Audrey. Oh, you gave me a heart attack there. But I'm super excited that we have Audrey in the room. Everyone's joining the stage gradually as we talk here. Marvelous, marvelous, marvelous. Okay, guys. So you've seen some poll results. You've seen some initial conversation. Audrey's having slight camera issues, but you hopefully saw her face for a second. There she is. Yes, I think she's been through about half an hour of IT hell. So thank you, Audrey. You get a gold star just for being here. Anyway, yeah, so let's start off the conversation with the challenge. The challenge of well, I would say the past, but you saw it on the poll yourself. 20% of us are still relying on the vanity and activity metrics as the primary indicator of how well we are doing. So I just want to ask the panel, is it recognized that that is not good enough? That's the first part. And the second part, what is the challenge in actually moving off that if it is recognized? What is, when it all comes down to it, why aren't we a bit more advanced than we are, than we should be, perhaps? And by the way, the third thing you might counter with is just, activity is actually quite a useful measure. And I've certainly heard that recently. Some people, of course, believing that it is still of value. So the floor is open. I don't know who wants to go first. I'm not going to pick on Audrey because that would just be mean. But maybe someone else would care to begin the conversation.
I'll kick off. I think
go for it, Claire. That's what we like to see.
I think the fundamental thing of why it's still a challenge is that we are human at the end of the day. We are human, and trying to take other humans through a change curve is a challenge. And I think trying to get people to embrace to do something different can be a challenge, and seeing that there is value in that. We are creatures of habit and used to tracking KPIs, and that makes us comfortable. What we have, the change we have to continue to do is look at the KPIs and what it is, those deliver against a long-term behavioural shift. So that's what we need to see with our customers, is a long-term behavioural shift, and go from delivering our KPIs in 1 month to say, actually, are we moving the customers where we need to go? And those interactions, those customers, are they moving along that ladder over a medium to long-term period of time? And that is a real different mindset to get maybe our sales teams and others in and across business units to change, because it's something we've always done. It's my thoughts.
Thank you. That was a good gauntlet throwing opening, Claire. So we are human. I'm glad that you agree with that in the first instance. I would love to hear from others.
Maybe if I add.
Go on, Chris. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, listening to the conversation, thinking about this as well, and I just write notes to myself as I go, but the starting point was 28% of HCPs are basically saying that their interactions are not good enough. But we also have, because we're human, to Claire's point, we have our own behaviours to overcome as well, which is, how do we ask how that interaction quality was, right? So if we think about customer satisfaction surveys, in my time at Novo, it was a bi-yearly thing. It was the CSAT was done, and that was a key thing. But we were asking the question, how do we compare to others? Not how do we perform, it was how do we compare to others in that space. So if you're in a space where everybody's a little bit poor, which is what the 28% is telling us, our behaviors are reinforcing what we've been doing. So we're getting information that says, well, we compare and we're the chosen one out of the group that we're comparing against, not what should good look like and what does good interaction look like. And therefore, what do we need to do in order to drive that change in ourselves in order to get that change with our customers? And then the second bit I was thinking, just on top of what Claire was saying, is you've kind of got time needed for behavioral change versus time given for behavioral change. And we all work in worlds like global roles. We talk about bigger picture and longer timeframes down to operational quarter by quarter. But we're giving ourselves constraints that we expect to see this change in this time frame, but we're not considering how long change actually takes when it comes down to behavior and what are the things we need to do that are going to be that magic kind of simple syrup to make sure everything starts to move.
Well,
I'll add to Chris's thoughts. Yeah, so I think there is an acceptance that we would like to measure quality over quantity, but how do you measure quality? And particularly, how do you measure it all the time, rather than on a monthly field visit or a periodic STEM audit which says you're good or you're bad, or these are the things you need to change. And because we haven't had that, it's very difficult then to replace the quantity metrics of, how many calls are we doing, what frequency we're seeing people, how many emails have been opened. Now, I think we're getting to a world now where it is possible to have things measuring and looking at quality all the time. And what I hope is that is the thing that breaks the inertia and says it is worth taking people through the change curve that Claire talked about.
Interesting. So the ability to measure was what was holding us back. Okay. Sabine.
Yeah, no, for me, I think it's important also when we look at quality. I mean, what we want to achieve with our customers is also a stepwise approach. So the success does not come from one interaction, it comes from several interactions. So how to measure that quality? And Dave, you mentioned that as well, right? That is the difficult thing. While if we look at the old KPIs, it made people, sales forces, feel very comfortable. So if I have done XYZ numbers of calls, I've done a good job. And now we are telling them it's success might take very long because we move them around the adoption ladder. The customer has to change with you. So it's two changes we have to manage, actually. And I think that makes people by default very uncomfortable. So we have to move them ahead. And I think that is what I'm looking for, is how do we get, for example, we're talking about AI later, to support that kind of measurement of quality, because that is what is currently still, I feel, completely missing. And yes, we do have some ways where we think we measure quality, but I think we still don't. So in that sense,
can you give me an example of that, Sabine, of where we might be slightly?
How do you measure quality if it's a two-person interaction, a face-to-face call? The quality is measured by the person who's doing that call, and he's measuring or she's measuring herself by, did I achieve what I wanted to achieve? It's pure perception. And that is a little bit where we are getting to. So how can we make sure in all the other interactions that we are having in the future, not just the face-to-face calls, emails that can maybe measure sentiments when there's a reply through AI, and get a little bit more quality assessment in the future on these other interactions into a kind of measurement metrics. I don't have a solution here. I think there's just a lot of ideas that have to come to a little bit of trial and error moving forward in the future. That's a little bit how I look at it.
Well, we're going to come to Audrey and David just one quick second, and I know you're ready and eager, but I'm noted that only 50% of people have answered the poll question, and that is not good enough, everybody. So come on, that's my measure for today at least. So, you know, terrible activity metric, I know, but we need a few more answers, please. We want to this is a great opportunity when we've got hundreds of people to gather some unique and interesting new data. So please let's get those poll questions answered. I'll close it in 1 minute's time. Audrey, I think you're about to speak. And does your audio work? Oh, I can only just hear you. Oh dear, Audrey, I can't really hear you very well. I don't know what your microphone situation is, but you might have to speak up. Try speaking up. No, unfortunately not. I'm so sorry. You might have to just mute yourself for now and then do the audio tests, I'm afraid. Sorry, Audrey. Would love to hear you, but I can't hear you. David, would love you. You are the in the luxurious seat of being able to see across clients, across companies, and you know, maybe it was this that made you respond with the company you've built. But how would you describe the challenge and this focus on activity and vanity, and why we can't move beyond it in the traditional world?
I think there's a couple of things I would observe. I think, you know, I look at Strata and probably the people that are on this call and are listening that want to do a better job in pharma and are desperately trying to get the right treatments into the hands of patients as quickly as possible because it's improving the general well-being of everyone. So I think I see a number of people in pharma with that motivation and really trying to try very hard to do it. I think coming almost back to, I think Claire's point is, I think we're held back by incrementality. I think, you know, in our ambition is to do what we currently do slightly better. And if I do that, I'll look good at the end of my end of year appraisal. That's the sense I get. So it's kind of a middle management inertia, which is if I do it slightly better than I did it last year, a slightly better activity metric that's slightly better than we did before, then we'll do that. And I think that maybe we'll get to this, but that's where I think the technology, as Sabine was saying, can really open up, you know, transformation opportunities and how we really think about how we do things in all aspects of pharma commercialization. And if I think about why does that, when I observe from outside, I do see sort of a conservatism approach, you know, which is the compliance thing. So at one end, you've got, you know, this incredibly transformational approach going on in R&D where we're using AI to do DNA sequencing and you know, synthetic research to identify molecules that have better chances of success. And then we kind of slow and sludge the whole thing down when we get to the commercial bit and get very traditional because we're a little bit frightened because just like in another industry, financial services, you know, I've been involved in, you know, people have been caught out doing the wrong thing. And now we've kind of, the pendulum has swung so far the other way that we just are frightened of making a mistake. And that kills and stifles innovation. So there you go. That's a controversial view for you.
It's a sad view. I don't know if I guess I'm wondering if it is simply almost a sort of laziness or unwillingness to take risks, or if it's quite simply because people don't know the alternatives. Like, if you know, it's very easy to be incremental, and I certainly, although you'll hear me shouting things from the rooftop, I certainly don't blame anyone in our industry for the progress, the incremental progress they're making, because the truth is that is what the job is. People are told to stay within the lines 99% of the time, and they have to indeed do that. So you mentioned financial services, and of course the way we interact with banks now is very different from how we did only a decade ago. I mean, who goes to a traditional face-to-face bank anymore? So yes, there might be some inertia. It's a highly regulated industry, but the technologists of the world have provided new options for how we bank. You're not supposed to just nod your head, David. You're supposed to argue with me at this point.
Sorry. Yeah, I was waiting for others to wade in. No, no, you're right. Yes, I'm sorry. I certainly didn't want to attack individuals in the industry, because I think everyone's, many people are trying very hard to change the way their world works. So I definitely acknowledge that effort. Yeah, I think it is the conservative nature of the compliance framework is a big piece of it. And even when Dave and I were chatting the other day, just about we're trying to kind of do the right thing from a compliance point of view, as in deliver people that are well trained in the industry, that can deliver the kind of the messages in the right way. Yeah, we still have to go through a number of hoops on the compliance side to try and get people to act in line with the principles, because the clause clause 3.5.7 doesn't quite say that we're allowed to do that, even though it's the right thing to do. So that's definitely one of the things that we end up fighting very hard against, to enable people to do it.
Okay.
Can I just build on that? Sorry.
Go for it. Go for it.
But I completely agree with David, and there's this ultimate disconnect. We have this real depth of embracing AI at the R&D point of view to create in this industry the right medicines for the right patients. So we invest so much in that end. But the coalface at the point, which is that customer interaction, where you're actually going to get it over the line and getting that medicine to that right patient, that's where we are not embracing AI in the way that we can. So we're investing so much here, but until we fully embrace it through the entirety of the chain, none of us will get the right medicines to the right patients at the right time. So it's that disconnect that we need to move our organizations along that journey.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to see if Audrey's audio is working, and I also want to end the poll. Thank you to everyone who responded to that. I'll share the results. Audrey, do we hear you? You're on mute right now. You're actually on mute. You've muted yourself at the moment. So can you unmute yourself? She's nodding. Okay, Audrey, we still haven't got you, I'm afraid. I'm going to have a look at the poll results. What best reflects your organization defines? Okay, it's quite an even spread, with a quarter of people saying a meaningful exchange where the HCP feels understood, and 29% saying securing next steps or commitments, so actual action afterwards. So that's how we're defining a successful interaction. I did notice that in the chat window, who was it? Henrik Larsson said, "What happened to just asking HCPs?" I don't know if the panel wants to respond to that. And indeed, how do we define quality, from Simon Grimes? Similar question. The second part was, regardless of the perceived quality, what influences an HCP? Feeling understood got more than a third of the vote. The context was genuinely heard. So it's listening as much as talking, from what we're saying. Nearly 30% say trust built over consistent, reliable interactions, and 21% say relevance and clarity. Not much for the other answers. Audrey, do I dare try you again? Oh, okay. I think that my colleagues are doing something clever in the background to pull you in. Okay, let's move on. Believe it or not, it's already past. Oh, Audrey?
It works.
Oh, hello.
You're using me twice. But
okay, well,
wow.
We hear you. We hear you.
Wow.
That's what I'm enjoying at the moment. Oh,
what a journey this has been, my friend.
What a journey.
Unbelievable. Okay, I swear I am not tech stupid. I have played with many devices to get through this. I have had a computer crash on me twice. I have had phones tell me that they don't want to join. So we are Mercury retrograding ourselves through this.
Right. Let's hear your opinion on this question.
Challenges. So just in full transparency, because real life, real world, I was very involved in the conversation for the first 3 responses, and then I have been playing with my phone trying to get in. So I apologize that I missed the last 2 very good responses, except for the moment about the financial sector.
Just give us your genuine.
So yes, my reactions. There's a point I want to bring up, and I believe it was Claire that might have mentioned this. we're looking at interaction. So we're talking about vanity metrics. We're talking about which KPIs we're pulling. The way the conversation was flowing, it made me think about flipping what we are looking to measure when we're looking to measure behavior change. It's number one, it's the aggregation of activities that help us to see behavior change or the impact of what we're doing. So a vanity metric is one vanity metric, but the aggregation of different moments over time with a clear objective, that's when we start to see if that's when we move out of the vanity state and into evaluation. Like, are we actually having a change? And then it's what is it that we want to flip? So what if we were measuring, rather than just the behavior change, if we measured around how a message is delivered and across all the different channels, across all the different touch points, does the message have an impact rather than the person that's being connected with, and are they changed? So by changing the lens on what we're measuring, we can evaluate the value of that activity differently.
Are you saying, Audrey, that sometimes we go straight to the person and we almost forget that the message has such a significant influence? I mean, I personally find that it's funny. We talk about omnichannel all day long and rarely about what we're actually communicating these days. So that's what I suspect. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's a combo of both. I don't think either, like, we shouldn't sacrifice some perspectives in order to go a whole new way. But they should complement each other. And they complement each other when we know what it is that we are striving to achieve at the top. So, what is the objective here? Is it a behavior change? Is it, you can be granular with it too. Is it advocacy towards something, or is it more interest toward a certain, I don't know, I'm not going to get too granular on this one because it becomes very tangible. But anyway, so when we go there, then we can look at the aggregation of our face-to-face interactions, our message delivery, and our digital. So if we're talking OCE, it's the orchestrated across different channels. Then the delivery of our digital activities and how they may or may not complement one another, and when they perform in orchestration, then are we also seeing, is it share of growth? Is it share of engagement? Is it share of voice? Is it a behavior change on adoption ladder? But those perspectives become kind of the milestone benchmarks for us as we ladder the different components together. Does that make sense?
I think so. And we're going to double click on that in the course of this conversation for sure. I can see several people want to already reply, but I'm going to suppress it just for a moment, just because time is ticking. And I want us to move the chapter from challenge to solution. And Audrey, I think that what you were saying was starting to move there anyway. So this is a perfect segue. David, I'm going to ask you to share your screen. And audience, I'm going to ask you to also answer another poll. This one is specifically on the topic of measurement, and it's a three-parter. So do get answering. David. Marvelous.
Did I do it? Great.
Yeah.
So cool. So I really want to talk to you about a concept we call Net Connector. So Net Connector is a composite score that we collect that looks at the balance between the strength of connection in the relationship and the behaviors that change, that drive strong connection and weak connection. And our whole purpose here is to have better conversations that then lead to better outcomes. I'm going to give you a 2-second just brace of how do we get there, and obviously it's AI that we use to get there. And just some background. So we analyze conversations between field teams, that's MSLs and reps and healthcare professionals. And in doing so, our story started in COVID. So our story started when everyone jumped on Zoom and Teams for the first time, and were really interested in how they could do that in a better way rather than face-to-face. We actually analyze mainly face-to-face these days, but we started And that led us into kind of looking at three types of AI to analyze conversation: the words, the tones or the voice, and the visuals. And that led us into kind of emotion, micro, macro, facial movements, and then really understanding, if we understand that Paul's sad or he's happy or he's angry, actually, what does that really mean? And our patent pending technology looks at how emotion evolves over the course of a conversation. So that's what we do. We do that across the world, and we do that in every major market in the world. And what we did was we engaged them with some clinical psychologists and psychotherapists to say, actually, what's really going on in these conversations? Because an individual conversation will 15-minute conversation with an HCP will elicit maybe 200,000 data points, and that's a ton of data. But actually, what does it really mean? And we latched onto this concept of connection with the clinical psychologists as we went frame by frame through these pharma conversations with healthcare professionals. And we just hooked onto this concept that actually the heart of everything is connection. And if you connect with someone, generally good things happen. It's this kind of invisible thread, as this quote on the screen kind of alludes to. And if you can get that resonant point where you connect more than you disconnect, and by the way, we have many different points of connection and disconnection in the same conversation. If I can connect more than I disconnect, I should get the right kind of outcome. And that's what this quote is kind of alluding to. I reap what I sow. If I can connect in a deeper way with you, it's more likely that we're both going to get to our mutual outcomes. So that's the kind of the concept. The work with the clinical psychologists led us then to do some work with the NHS, looking at actually doctor-patient interactions. And we did some analysis in both secondary and primary care. And this study that I'm showing you here is just kind of giving you a sense of what sits behind connection and how we look at it. And in this study of real consultations between doctors and patients, you can see there's some blue lines there, which are kind of phase 1 and the phase 2, when all we did was show people, the individual doctors, how they were connecting and disconnecting precisely in their conversations individually. And it's funny, how you're kind of subconsciously incompetent, and then you just don't know that you do certain things. When you show someone that's bright and clever and smart, you go, look, it's here and here and here. That's what you did well, and that's what you could do better. Then people immediately pick up on that and do something, and they can then do something about it. And that's really what we showed here. And at the heart of connection in medical conversations, you can see two things I've highlighted here. First is empathy. So, there's many professors that would say prescribing a dose of empathy in every consultation will help the patient get better, unless there's something seriously wrong with them that they need detailed medical help. And many studies have proved that out. And actually, the clinical psychologists we talked to said empathy is just about opening yourself up as a human being. It's being available as a human being. We talked about this kind of human behavior change earlier. Actually, if you miss opportunities if you see opportunities for empathy and take them, you deepen the relationship. And if you miss them, you weaken it. And that's what this is really showing. And the second truth from this slide is that actually how you say something matters more than what you say. So the tone, the acoustic, the way you say something is really, really quite profound. And that's what this shows. And in this example, what you see is when the doctors had seen what they were doing that was turning their patients off, they managed to reduce those disconnection points by about 60%. That increased patient experience 20 to 50% in the various studies that we've done. So a massive uplift in connection based on showing people how and where they do it well and how they could do it better. So that's kind of that's the first stage of this, is kind of transaction analysis and looking at how people connect and disconnect based on behavioral science. The next thing we did was then start to look at what the FBI do, because we talked about behavior change, both internal behavior change, but also what we're trying to do with doctors is in a rep conversation is get them to prescribe the right drug to the right patient. In an MSL conversation, we're trying to get to belief shift. And so that they understand there's maybe a different way, a different science that can help their patients of certain types. And this FBI behavioral change stairwell model, which, by the way, comes from Chris Voss. You can look him up. He's got a great book, Never Split the Difference, and you'll find him on YouTube. What the FBI worked out was to change behaviors, you need to go through each of these steps in turn. You can't go straight to purposeful persuasion and hope that the hostage taker will suddenly change their mind. What you have to do is you have to listen with intent. You have to really understand the person you're dealing with and empathize with them. That builds trust. Once you build trust and rapport, then you can start to move on to, because you've earned the right, and also you understand what their drivers are. So you can now position what you want them to do against what they want to do. So they create the behavior change themselves. And then obviously, once you've got that adjusted mindset, you get to a solution. And I think for pharma conversations, this is what we've also applied into our Net Connector. Is actually, I think we move to, and this is the vanity metrics in purposeful persuasion, to detailing and sharing messages. And actually, if you don't connect those messages to what you've already learned about that individual doctor in their situation, that are their needs and what they're trying to deal with, then it's just a message delivered. It's not a message that connects. And so this stairwell model is really, really important. And we look at pharma conversations to understand, are we going through those steps, or are we missing some out? And in many conversations, we see them missing out. And I think most reps and MSLs would tell you connection is the invisible ingredient that's running through these conversations. So just to give you a pharma example, this varies by client. This is kind of real outputs, but obviously, anonymized. When we looked at what a field team was doing, these kind of three common things often come out in our studies. So converting understanding into action is a key gap. So that's kind of understanding without commitment to action actually doesn't drive behavior change. And we see that as a skills-based gap. Connecting features to client impact. So we see people presenting data, but not actually then connecting and getting great responses like, this increases efficiency by 40%, and healthcare professionals go, oh my God, that's amazing. But then not closing it out and going, actually, and what that could do for you in your context is, and that's how you then drive to action. And then we also see, the structure of a conversation. A good, well-structured conversation has much more chance of leading to results. So those are kind of some generic gaps. I'm just trying to share some added value things about where this goes to. And then, the flow of a great call, open with clarity, explores needs, opportunities, shares a key insight and lands it, rather than having to share all 5 brand messages, because actually landing 1 point really well is much more important than landing 5 just because I had to meet 5 messages. Getting to specific value that I talked about before, handling concerns with evidence and reassurance. Actually, risk aversion or loss aversion is more powerful than talking about, efficacy of the drug. So getting into actually what are the risks you're trying to mitigate, and then obviously, driving to close. I'm going fast because I'm conscious of time. So anyway, the longer part of it is we've got this Net Connector score. And what we've learned, because we also look at the quality of outcomes in our analysis, is that high quality behavior change outcomes, like I will prescribe, or I'm going to think about the therapy area differently in an MSL conversation. Once you get to 71 on the Net Connector scale, you're 5 times more likely to get those high quality outcomes. So it's really quite profound. The evidence now shows us that if I connect better than I disconnect, I will get to behavior change. And then just maybe one final thought about this, and in our studies with people like Claire and Dave and others, what we're seeing is that we can see a 20% uplift in behavior change or high quality call outcomes. Claire's was much bigger than that, but I won't embarrass her. Coaching effectiveness improves because we've got frontline managers coaching their teams better. And obviously, you get to revenue growth, and you could pick a number from McKinsey anywhere between 2 and 15%. But for a major franchise, it makes the ROI probably one of the highest ROI investments that you can make. So not only is connection important, but they can have massive impact. And perhaps the last point about behavior change is, at the heart of our AI analysis is we analyze lots of conversations, not one a month or one a year. And at that point, what you're trying to do is nudge people, helping them, because you're giving them 3 coaching nudges that just goes, actually, you did this well, maybe think about that. And it's that maybe think about that helps the reps. They're empowered themselves. The MSLs, they're empowered to own their own development. And then they start to choose the change that they want. And all you're doing is showing them every now and again that this is possible. So I'm going to end there, Paul.
Thank you, David, and super interesting. Just a really quick question because we are fast running out of time. Do you find yourself having to educate, surprise, provoke your clients when you show them how effective some of these behavioral elements are? And do you find yourself against some kind of cultural resistance when presenting the level of impact, even with their own data?
No, a good question. So you should probably ask Claire and Dave, I think, that question.
Or maybe I will. Maybe I will.
Yeah.
But just very quickly,
Yeah. But I think I'm finding that people really like the insights that they're getting. And to actually Audrey's point, if you've got a whole raft of reps and you're looking at message delivery, and you can actually look at how healthcare professionals are responding to those messages, we can get to the heart of the argument, which is sales aren't delivering it well enough versus marketing, versus sales saying the marketing message isn't good enough. And actually, you can cut through all of that rubbish back and forth and just go, actually, we can really see the evidence. And once you've got the evidence, you can obviously then start to take action. So it creates actually better, more functional teams in commercial areas as people can kind of align around the data and then start to take action.
Yeah, well, great. You mentioned Claire and Dave. I want to bring them in and just hear, firstly, reaction, and secondly, what's the reality of this, of going through this process from your side?
I think I agree with Dave in terms, David, in terms of the transparency. Not only does it be able to see where the challenge is and how you can adapt, but it gives us transparency across all across functions. But it also means that we can act really quick. We can act much quicker, and we do, and we are as a result. So we see those big tangibles, whether it's actually delivery, impact, or brand messaging, or other elements, we can do that quite quickly. The reality for us is there was some initial cultural resistance. This is a different thing. And as to my very first point on this call, we're humans, and there can be a fear around change and doing something differently. And what does that mean for me? But we've had some fantastic champions as part of the teams that has then helped to roll out in my franchise, in my part of the business, and then we've then acted as advocates for the rest of the business and then globally. So there's always been pockets of resistance, but yeah, we have to manage those in different ways.
And you'd recommend to others to try and set up a kind of champions network then, if they would, right? Okay.
Most definitely, and also having a great partner in Kai in terms of helping us to execute that as well.
Well, David's all right. Let's not go too crazy, but yeah. Dave, I want to hear you. You've obviously got an angle from a technologist as well as a strategist background. So
I get a little bit on our journey then. So I think we started to record calls initially for a different purpose. We wanted our interactions with our HCPs to be more personalized and relevant. And right. So actually from a relationship continuity, being able to see what had happened the last time someone interacted with this customer, not through drop-down pick lists and some, generic things that people captured, but actually seeing a synopsis of the call, that was amazing from a sequential selling point of view. And then we thought, well, actually, if we've got these audio files and we're processing them ourselves for that summary, can we also start to give dynamic coaching back to people to say, hey, against our selling excellence framework, you're really excelling in these areas, but these are the nudges, to use David's terminology, that would help you. And we started to do that. And then we started to say, do you know what? We're starting to see aggregate patterns here. We're starting to see that our customer sentiment when we deliver a message about using product X in patient cohort 1 is not as powerful as when we deliver it for patient cohort 2. So we start to get marketing insights that tell us actually customers really position this well when we talk about this patient cohort. We start to see common objections. We start to see common areas of interest from our customer base. And actually what we're seeing is there's just unbelievable insights to be gathered from call recording as per se. Now, once we start to see that insight, we can start to say, well, do you know what? We've got markers of quality here. So the earlier conversation about you can't move away from, the coverage and frequency and the quantity metrics until you have something reliable to replace it with. We're starting to show that we have something reliable to replace it with. And whether it is good old-fashioned good sell outcome that you're able to look at in terms of summarizing the calls, or whether it is capability improvements over time by having those coaching nudges, or whether it's net connector scores and your sentiment of connections with your customers. These are things that could really start to challenge coverage and frequency as our ingrained fallback plan for incentivizing reps, or actually measuring the impact. So it starts to move us, I think, away from having a field force who are a channel to deliver messages, to start to have a field force who are our sensors on the ground, who are eyes and ears that inform our business. And actually we can then really hopefully address that 28% at the beginning, Paul, and start to say, we know you better because we're listening to you and we're acting upon what we listen to and deliver more value to you.
Great. I'm definitely going to obviously bring Chris, Audrey and Sabine in for their reaction, but just quickly before I do, Claire and Dave, I just want you to fast forward 3 years. How would you expect your field activities to now be different as a result of this collected learning? And we know that when technology is first introduced, it's just replacing what we do today in a faster way. But Dave, you were obviously pointing towards new enhanced vision and insight. And how are you expecting that to make a more fundamental change later on? Just and it's a hard question to answer quickly, but I'm going to have to ask you to try.
Yeah. Do you want me to go first, Claire?
Go for it.
So what I would say is 1 year, not 3 years. I think this is going to fundamentally change things, and will change things very rapidly. Certainly within our organisation, where I think we can see the value now, the signals are there. The thing I think it will change in our field force is that I think that we will train them to be better at asking insightful questions. Because if they are our sensors on the ground, rather than our message delivery agents, then actually for us to learn from the interactions, it will require them to probe better and really get to the nub of the customer's expectations and the intentions for patients.
Yeah, I agree with Dave in terms of the acceleration. It's 1 year rather than 3. We've been working and using this with our sales team for about 2.5 years already, and we are seeing those huge tangible benefits. We're seeing that we understand our customers better than ever, and as to say, our sales team are those insightful partners and agents. So we expect that to continue to accelerate. But if any of us sit here and say we know what the world, if we thought what the world would look like, the pace.
You're not Mystic Meg, Claire.
No, certainly not. The pace of change is huge, but we're going to say that we are not looking at the number of calls. We are looking at the impact and the calls and what that goes on going forward, and that will continue to accelerate.
Okay. Well, you can see the poll question. The second part said, if you could change one thing tomorrow, where'd you start? And 40%, the highest amount, say redefine performance metrics to include connection quality. So you've clearly had some influence there. So I really want to bring Chris, Audrey and Sabine. I want to hear your genuine reaction to what you've heard and whether or not you feel like you've learned anything or might want to change anything as a result of what you've heard.
May I jump in?
Please.
I'll not be polite. Just
waited
had
so
such
long.
tech
We just can't.
right?
Yeah.
Here we go. I think I'll touch on 3 different things. The first is hearing this. By the way, I loved it. Thank you. It was really fascinating. And it does a really nice, you've presented a very nice flow on closing the loop with messaging and the frontline. I like how you called them, Claire, your insights partners, basically. They kind of collect and respond in order to close that loop with your doctors and your customers. I come not from a frontline perspective. I come from a kind of everything else perspective. And I still see exactly the value you're talking about, Claire, which is your frontline as your insights partners. And then it is how to create that hook so the follow through can also occur with other channels, and connecting those two pieces. I think there's a lot of value. And then it's back to talking about how we measure the impact of messaging and that pull through across the front line, and then also executing it in different channels to close the loop. A piece on this, and you had mentioned it, David, around, you didn't say it quite like this, the so what, which is you put a 40% out there and it's a great data, but so what? Does that 40% actually change a customer's behavior? No, not until you give them the how and the so what. You kind of walk them through it. And all of our channels should be echoing that same journey. And so it's closing the loop that we also need to close for ourselves. So there's that piece I found interesting, which also then to the very beginning of the conversation, you were talking about with executives and how internal change management and the consideration on behavioral KPIs or vanity KPIs and metrics. Again, it's closing the loop, because while there might be an interest or even an awareness, yes, we need to change, the introduction of something new is fascinating. The so what and the how doesn't always come through for them. And so their behavior shifts internally don't follow their awareness of a problem or even an awareness of a solution. There's still this hand-holding activity that needs to accompany, the same as we're doing in our external engagements. So, okay.
Thank you, Audrey. Chris and Sabine, you've got a minute each, unfortunately, only. So I want to hear your pointed final thoughts.
I'm going to say one thing super quickly, so then Sabine gets a chance. The thing that I've been hearing is we need to measure impact. The thing that I'm not hearing, which is a challenge for another conversation, is what if you don't have the human factor? Right? As things evolve and things change, and some product profiles, as they age, we reduce down the human factor, we reduce down the field force, and we think about other methods. But impact is still really important. So I think it's something we need to think about in product.
Next conversation. Yeah, next conversation. And by the way, audience, before you leave, any suggestions for future conversations, please do throw them in. Sabine.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really liked what I heard. I think this point of connection and disconnection in an interaction is the critical one. If we have to distill it down to one thing in an interaction, that's it. And I really think that we have to move the needle here. In a total organization, I think what I also hear, what we need to be doing and taking it from there, we have to connect the dots for the teams who deal with one customer, because it's usually not one person. We have medicals coming in. We have sometimes people from the central affiliate coming in and whatsoever. So I think we have the power with AI to really help us connecting the dots and really coming to the things that we need to be changing. And then we have to come also in the perception of the job profiles come from individual interaction towards the cross-functional interaction. I think it changes the whole dynamic of a sales force from an individual towards a true team player where everyone has a very distinct role, and we have the help of AI connecting the dots for us and getting us to the next best action for that customer and the next best conversation, explaining exactly how we make an impact. That's a little bit how I look at it from, just thinking it a little bit further.
Thank you. Well, I'm afraid to say we've hit the hour. Sometimes when you run these conversations, you wish you had 3 hours, and that is definitely the case with this one. I feel like we've almost just getting started here. So sorry that you've got another meeting and that you have to jump onto that now. Obviously, huge thanks to our audience, for everyone that was interacting in the chat, especially, and particularly to our panel who gave their time, their energy, their insights here, and in the case of Audrey, her IT skills. It's been massively heartwarming to see how you guys are really quite motivated to move beyond metrics and the importance of having the impact, from not just a commercial point of view, but for a patient orientation as well. And really exciting technology that seems to me to have very little resistance because it makes so much sense. I can't imagine that Dave or Claire, you're going to go back now to the old world scenario. So David, really exciting stuff that you shared with us today. Thank you so much, everyone. I don't want you to be late for your next meeting, so please do head out there. Use the QR code if you want to see what we've got coming up next. And otherwise, I just want to say another huge thank you. Throw in any ideas and suggestions into the chat. I'll hold this window open for a couple more minutes. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day and good luck. And, make this happen. It's definitely within our power. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.